Hey guys, and welcome back. In this video we'll take a look at the 7 German modal verbs. They're super important. They come up all the time. So we have the 7 modal verbs: können, müssen, wollen, dürfen, mögen, möchten and sollen. The 6th one, möchten, is actually not a modal verb on its own. It's a conjunctive 2 form of number 5, of mögen, but it doesn't matter too much. Some books show them as 6, other books show them as 7 modal verbs. Doesn't really matter too much. So we'll take a look at the conjugation of each of these verbs, and then we'll have some examples and tips and tricks and so on. So first of all, können. Ich kann, du kannst, er, sie, es kann. Wir können, ihr könnt, sie können. So the sad little emoji, the sad smiley face, is there because modal verbs are irregular. And for the most part, they change in the singular. There's a different vowel. Instead of the O umlaut, we have the A in the singular. And also we have the missing personal endings for the first and the third person singular. So there is no E for the first person singular. Ich kann, no E at the end. And there is no T for the third person singular. Er, sie, es kann, no T. That's the conjugation. Let's move on to take a look at some examples now. Ich kann heute nicht kommen. So what this modal verb expresses is ability or possibility. In this case, it's possible or it's not possible for me to come. I can't come today. So there's the verb kommen in here. Do you know the perfect tense as well? Kommen and then ist gekommen for the perfect tense. Also there's the word nicht. People struggle a lot with the right position for nicht. So basically a rule of thumb is put nicht at the end. But in this case, the last position is already reserved because we have the infinitive on the last position. So if the last position is reserved by an infinitive, separable prefix, or by a participle 2 form, in this case it's not free, it's not vacant. In this case, put nicht in front of that. So it's the second last position, the penultimate position. Ich kann heute nicht kommen. Wir können Deutsch und Englisch sprechen. This time it's about the ability of speaking these languages. We can speak German and English. Here I have 2 bonus questions for you. The first one is sprechen. What's the past tense here? Sprechen and then hat gesprochen. It's an irregular participle 2 form. Second question, here we're talking about languages, right? Deutsch, English, Italienisch, Spanish. So what's language and what's languages in German? Die Sprache, plural, die Sprachen. If a noun ends in an E, you can always add an N for the plural, and these nouns are mostly 95% feminine, like here, die Sprache. Meine Tochter kann schon schwimmen. My daughter can already swim. She's quite young, but surprisingly she can already swim. Sie kann schon schwimmen. Here it's again about ability. Again, I want you to tell me the past tense form of schwimmen. Schwimmen and then ist geschwommen. Again, irregular participle 2 form. Also, schon. What about the opposite? She cannot swim yet. How about that? She cannot swim yet. Sie kann noch nicht schwimmen. Meine Tochter kann noch nicht schwimmen. Schon, already, noch nicht, not yet. Great. Er kann sehr gut kochen. He can cook very well. And how about the past tense form of kochen, to cook? Here I have some good news. This time we have a regular participle 2 form. So kochen, hat gekocht. Regular for these participle 2 forms means we have a T at the end. And mostly we also have GE at the beginning, if it's not a prefix verb at least. Hat gekocht. So how about the opposite? Good and bad. I'm sure you know this one. This one's easy. Gut and schlecht. Gut kochen and schlecht kochen. So now let's take a look at the second modal verb, and that's müssen. So müssen expresses obligation and necessity, must, have to, just like in English. So, ich muss, du musst, er, sie, es muss. Again, please note the vowel change. Instead of the U umlaut, just the U in the singular. And also the missing personal endings, no E for the first person singular, and no T for the third person singular. Plural is normal or regular. Wir müssen, ihr müsst, sie müssen. Example sentences. The first one is ich muss morgen früh aufstehen. We don't like that, getting up early. I don't like it. Today I got up at maybe 9 o'clock. 9 Uhr. Anyway, ich muss morgen früh aufstehen. I have to get up early tomorrow. I have to do it. It's my obligation. It's necessary to do that. Okay, so aufstehen is the verb here that we use at the end. As you can see, we always use the modal verb on the second position, unless we have a question without a question word, but mostly modal verb on the second position, and on the very last position we have an infinitive. In English, that wouldn't be on the last position. In English, you don't say, I have early tomorrow to get up. In German, that's how we do it. You put the second verb in the infinitive form, meaning it ends in en, don't change it, and you put that on the last position. So aufstehen, to get up. What's the perfect tense, the past tense here? Aufstehen ist aufgestanden. It's a separable verb, so here we get ge in the middle, behind the prefix, aufgestanden. Also, it denotes a change of place from the bed to, the living room or next to the bed. So change of place verbs, they usually take ist, they take sein as the auxiliary in the perfect tense. Great. Also, do you know the opposite of früh? Früh, early. And how about late? That's spät. Früh aufstehen and spät aufstehen. Great. Let's continue. So guys, by the way, before we move on, I have a complete video course, a 4-hour video course on this topic, on the super important topic of the German modal verbs. So check out the landing page by clicking the first link down below this video to check out all the infos on the course. Du musst deine Hausaufgaben machen. You must do your homework. You have to do your homework. You need to do your homework. They're all good translations here. Machen is again a regular verb. Also the past participle form or the participle to form is regular, so we have gemacht. Machen, hat gemacht. There's another verb that we could use in this sentence. It's a bit more advanced, but it would be a very good fit for this sentence. To do something, to complete a task. It starts with ER. Maybe you've heard of it. That's erledigen. That would be also a very good option here. But machen is not wrong, of course. Du musst deine Hausaufgaben erledigen. Eine Aufgabe erledigen. Etwas erledigen. To get something done. To complete something. A task. Er muss jeden Tag arbeiten. He has to work every day. We all have to do that, I guess, unless you're a child, a teenager watching. But kids have to go to school. That's also kind of work and do homework. So we have arbeiten here, to work, and what's the past tense here? Arbeiten, hat gearbeitet. So this one is also regular. The stem ends in a T, so Arbeit, and here we have to add another E, so gearbeitet, because we cannot get TT. We need an E in between here. But this still counts as regular. Du musst dich entscheiden. You must decide. So here we have the verb entscheiden, it's reflexive, sich entscheiden, and in the past participle form we get entschieden. It's quite common. The verbs that have EI in the infinitive, they usually, 90%, they usually get IE in the participle to form and they end in an N. So this one is irregular. If it was regular, we would have gotten a T at the end and we wouldn't have gotten this vowel change. So it would have been entscheidet. But that's wrong. This one is irregular. Hat entschieden. So, sich entscheiden is the verb. And do you know the noun form? Decision. That's die Entscheidung. Like all nouns ending in UNG, this one is also feminine. So let's move on with to the next modal verb. But before we do that, we also get müssen with a negation sometimes. In this case, it's nicht müssen. And here we have a false friend. So people think it means must not, but it doesn't mean that. So there'll be a second part of the modal verbs coming up next week, with more advanced points. So if this video is easy for you, if this is just review, great. Wait for next week. There'll be a new video with the more challenging, the more problematic stuff which people get wrong all the time. So basically, if you have nicht müssen, it doesn't mean must not, it means need not. So du musst nicht kommen, it doesn't mean you must not come, it means you needn't come. You don't have to come. More on this next week. So the next modal verb is wollen. It expresses a wish or an intention, want in English. Ich will, du willst, sie, es will. Again, the singular is irregular. And for the plural, wir wollen, ihr wollt, sie wollen. Let's take a look at some examples. Ich will später Arzt werden. I want to become a doctor later. That's my wish, my intention, that's my plan. For these kind of things we use wollen. So we have the super important but a bit tricky verb werden here, to become, to get, like something changes. And the past tense form here is werden and then past tense ist geworden. So this kid wants to become a doctor, and I hope that in 20 years time, you know, when he's a student and he finishes his degree and then he does all the training, it takes ages to become a doctor, but at some point I hope he'll be able to say, I became a doctor. I have become a doctor. In German, ich bin Arzt geworden. I became a doctor. Great. So we have der Arzt in here. And do you know the plural form? Der Arzt, die Ärzte. Doctor, doctors. How about a woman, a female doctor? That would be die Ärztin, plural, die Ärztinnen. Great. Next sentence. Willst du mitkommen? Do you want to come along? Do you want to come with me or with us? So the verb in the infinitive, last position as always, here is mitkommen, to come with, to come along. And the perfect tense would be ist mitgekommen. So this one is a separable verb. Ich komme mit, du kommst mit. So mit goes to the end of the sentence when used alone without a modal verb. And these separable verbs, they get the GE not at the beginning but in the middle of the verb, right after the prefix, mitgekommen. Great. So this verb actually comes from the verb kommen. So if you know kommen and the past tense form and the conjugation, you also know all these forms for mitkommen. So it's kommen and then ist gekommen. It's not regular. We have en at the end, not the t. It's irregular, but then if you know kommen, you also know the prefix versions of this verb. You also know mitkommen and vorbeikommen and so on and so on. Great. Wir wollen ein neues Auto kaufen. We want to buy a new car. That's our plan, our wish, our desire, and so on. So kaufen, to buy. Past tense form? Hat gekauft. This one is regular. We have a T at the end. Nothing changes, no vowel change. So this one is regular. Kaufen, hat gekauft. So Auto is der, die, das. Well, if you look closely, we have ein neues Auto. So this must be a neutral noun. Other nouns, they don't get an adjective with an S before them, right? So this must be neutral. Das Auto. How about the plural? The plural form is die Autos. Das Auto, die Autos. Great. Ich will heute zu Hause bleiben. I want to stay at home today. So we have bleiben, to stay, to remain. How about the perfect tense here? This one is ist geblieben. Before I told you about the verbs that have EI in the infinitive, like bleiben, there is an E and then there is an I. These verbs, they mostly swap, they switch their vowel. So first the I and then the E, and then they end in an N. 90% of them. Bleiben ist geblieben. Schreien, to shout, to scream. Schreien, hat geschrien. Schreiben, to write, hat geschrieben, and so on. So we have zu Hause. If you're not at home, if you're on the go, if you're going somewhere, we say unterwegs. Ich bin zu Hause, ich bin unterwegs. Unterwegs, I'm on my way to some place. I'm on the move, I'm on the go. Great. So now we have the next modal verb, and that's dürfen. So dürfen is used with permission, but also for prohibition. Let's take a look. Ich darf, du darfst, er, sie, es darf, as always, irregular singular. Wir dürfen, ihr dürft, sie dürfen. Great. Darf ich hier sitzen? May I sit here? Sitzen, that's to sit. And what's the past tense form? Sitzen, hat gesessen. Completely irregular. We get the N at the end and not a T. And also the stem changes altogether. Sitzen, hat gesessen. Irregular. Next sentence. Wir dürfen heute früher gehen. We're allowed to leave earlier today. So good translations for dürfen include to be allowed to do something or may. Someone may do something. Wir dürfen heute früher gehen. So früher, earlier. Früh, early. Früher, that's the comparative form, earlier. How about the opposite? That's später, later. Früh, early, spät, late. Great. Then we have gehen, super important verb. I'm sure you know the past tense form. Gehen ist gegangen. Darf ich dich etwas fragen? May I ask you something? You can use dürfen for very polite questions. May I help you? May I ask you something? May I open the window? So we have fragen, to ask someone something. Fragen, hat gefragt. This one is also regular in the past tense. Fragen, hat gefragt. An alternative would be to ask someone a question, and that's eine Frage stellen. In this case, don't use fragen, don't use eine Frage fragen. In German we say eine Frage stellen. In this case, the person would be in the dative case. So, darf ich dir eine Frage stellen? With the verb fragen, person in the accusative, darf ich dich etwas fragen? But with the phrase eine Frage stellen, the person is in the dative case. Darf ich dir eine Frage stellen? Great. Du darfst nicht rauchen. You're not allowed to smoke. So here we have something that's banned, that's prohibited. In English, you can sometimes hear must not. You must not smoke here. In German, that's not, nicht müssen, that's different. In English, must not or be not allowed to. In German, that's dürfen with the negation word nicht or kein. So here, du darfst nicht rauchen. Nicht rauchen, so this means there is a Rauchverbot, like there is a smoking ban in this building or in this park, etc. Das Rauchverbot. So, das Verbot is the noun. And the adjective is verboten. Etwas ist verboten. Something is banned. Something is prohibited. It's time now for the next modal verb, and that's mögen. With mögen, you can show a preference. You can show that you like something. And that's the best translation, to like. Ich mag, du magst, er, sie, es mag. Wir mögen, ihr mögt, sie mögen. As always, irregular singular. Ich mag Schokolade. I like chocolate. So, the other modal verbs, we always use an infinitive at the end of the sentence. With mögen, we usually don't do that. There is some cases where you do that, but usually with mögen, you have a noun and not an infinitive at the end. You like something. Chocolate, pizza, Paris. Ich mag Schokolade. I like chocolate. So what gender do you think Schokolade is? Well, like most nouns ending in an E, 90% at least, it's feminine. Die Schokolade. And mögen is used with a noun. So a good question would be what case do we need here? And that's mögen plus accusative. Accusative. Accusative case, it doesn't actually change anything apart for masculine singular nouns. If it's feminine, the noun, or neutral, or in the plural, nothing changes at all. Only for the masculine singular, something changes. And we get an N for the masculine singular in the article. So rather than der Mann, we get den Mann. Great. Magst du Katzen? Do you like cats? Die Katze, in the plural, we have die Katzen. Negative answer. Ich mag keine Katzen. So we're negating the noun Katzen here with the negative article kein. In this case, keine. We need the E because it's plural. Ich mag keine Katzen. Sie mag es, wenn es regnet. So there is a way of using it with a verb, and in this case we have a subclause, wenn es regnet, when it rains. And here don't forget the little pronoun es. Sie mag es, wenn es regnet. She likes it when it rains. So we have regnen here, and it has a regular participle to form. Regnen hat geregnet. So, another sentence. Ich mag es, früh aufzustehen. In this case, we have the same subject in both sentences. She likes it, and she gets up early, and she likes that thing. She likes this activity. She likes getting up early. In this case, in English, I like getting up early. So you can use mögen with the verb. In this case, you use the zu infinitive construction. So usually the zu comes before the infinitive, zu, and then the verb. But with separable verbs, you put zu in the middle of the verb behind the separable prefix, just like the ge with the past participle forms, right? Ich mag es, früh aufzustehen. So aufstehen ist aufgestanden. Again, a super irregular participle to form. Früh, opposite is spät. We've seen this a couple of times today. Sie steht gern früh auf. That's another way of saying the same thing. So most students learn this first, actually, and that's using the adverb gern. Super useful and important adverb. In this case, you just use the verb on the second position, like here steht, and then auf at the end, because that's a separable verb. But anyway, you put the adverb gern after the verb. So, sie steht gern früh auf. Another example, ich lerne Deutsch, I learn German. But by adding the adverb gern, you can say that you like doing that. I like learning German. I enjoy learning German. So, ich lerne gern Deutsch. So, gern, super important and super common. If you want, you can also use this complicated construction here. Ich mag es, früh aufzustehen. Don't forget the s, and then you get zu infinitive. Great. The next modal verb is möchten. It's not an infinitive by itself, and that's why I've put the n in brackets here. It's actually the conjunctive to forms of the verb mögen. And with möchten you can express a wish or a request. It's quite similar to wollen in many instances, but möchten can be more polite. So if you want something from someone in a restaurant, shopping situation, hotel, cafe, in these scenarios, it's better to use ich möchte rather than ich will. It's more polite. Ich möchte, du möchtest, er, sie, es möchte. With this modal verb, only the third person singular is irregular. Wir möchten, ihr möchtet, sie möchten. Some examples coming up. Möchtest du mitkommen? Would you like to come along? Mitkommen ist mitgekommen. Möchten is the same as wollen actually. We actually saw the same sentence before with wollen. Willst du mitkommen? In this case it doesn't change a lot. Willst du, möchtest du, it's the same. Möchten is very similar to wollen in many cases. Wir möchten heute Pizza essen. We'd like to eat pizza today. Essen, hat gegessen for the past tense. Die Pizza, die Pizzen for the plural. Great. Er möchte heute feiern gehen. He wants to go partying today. So we have the colloquial verb feiern. In this case, it's like to go out, to party, to dance, drink alcohol. And that's feiern in spoken German. It comes from the noun die Feier, a celebration, festivity, celebration, and the plural is die Feiern. Great. Möchtest du ein Stück Kuchen? Would you like a piece of cake? Would you like a piece of cake? So we have der Kuchen, plural, die Kuchen. The noun doesn't change, just the article changes. So möchten is very close to wollen. In some scenarios, it might be more polite to use möchten, especially if you want something from someone. For example, in a restaurant, ich möchte eine Pizza, rather than ich will eine Pizza. Okay, great. And now we have the last modal verb, and that's the most challenging, the most tricky one. You can use it in 3 different functions. First of all, you can use it to ask about somebody's wish. Then you can use it for forwarding an instruction. And C, You can also use it for a recommendation. In this case, it's always used in the Konjunktiv 2 forms. Let's take a look. Ich soll, du sollst, er, sie, es soll. In this case, no vowel change for the singular. Wir sollen, ihr sollt, sie sollen. Great. Soll ich dir helfen? Shall I help you or should I help you? So that's the function where you ask someone about what they want. So, do you want me to do that? Do you want me to open the window? Do you want me to help you? Soll ich dir helfen? In this first function, we only have questions. It's always a question. Shall I or should I help you? Great. Helfen, always plus a dative object, like here, dir, soll ich dir helfen? Perfect tense, hat geholfen. And the noun is die Hilfe. Second sentence with the same function, soll ich das Fenster öffnen? Do you want that? I'm asking about what the other person wants, right? Shall I open the window? Do you want me? Would you like me to open the window? This kind of function. So we have öffnen and then hat geöffnet, a regular past tense form here. And do you know the plural form of Fenster? Das Fenster, die Fenster. Doesn't change at all, just the article changes. Great. Du sollst deine Eltern anrufen. So here we have another function. Here it's about you're telling someone to do something because a third person had told you to tell them. Okay, that sounds a bit complicated, but basically it's an instruction or an order or a piece of advice, but not from you, not from the person speaking, but from another third person. In this case, du sollst deine Eltern anrufen, meaning, for example, the parents told me to tell you to call them. So it's an indirect order, an order by someone else. You're supposed to call your parents. Your parents told me to tell you, basically. Anrufen, hat angerufen. That's the past tense form here. Die Eltern, it's a plural word, parents. There's no singular form here. Great. And then the other function was advice, recommendation. In this case, we always have the verb in the Konjunktiv 2 form, right? So not du sollst, but du solltest. It's Konjunktiv 2. Du solltest. So an extra te in there. Du solltest mehr Sport treiben. Only in these Konjunktiv 2 forms do we get the meaning of advice, recommendation. You should exercise more. You should work out more. Sport machen or Sport treiben. That's the same thing. Der Sport is a masculine noun. So if you're serious about learning German, you need the modal verbs. So please don't forget to check out my full video course on the modal verbs. Link and infos down below this video.